You got anything, Reverend Thomas?
Yeah, I think for me, it was, friendship, relationship. Particularly for you all, when you're young, you assume that all the friendships you have, you're going to take into your 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. But, sometimes when you're trying to go certain places in life, you realize everybody that's with you now isn't going to be with you when you get there. And sometimes it's stressful. You have friends you grew up with, and, at some point you get to a stage and you're just going different directions in life. And sometimes some of those friendships you have to sacrifice. Everybody can't go with you where you're going. And I think a lot of people hinder their path and hinder their growth because they're holding on to people or allowing people to hold on to them beyond their time and phase in your life. And sometimes you have to evaluate, friendship, relationship, and ask yourself, is it hindering you from getting where you're going?
Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Speaking with Gravity. I'm your host, Joshua Williams.
Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Hannah.
Terance Dawkins.
And we have a special guest with us today.
Yes.
But I'm going to let him introduce himself. Sir, would you kindly introduce yourself? Step up to the mic.
My name is Chris Thomas, and I am the director of the Dr. Benjamin E. Mays Historical Preservation Site here in Greenwood.
Oh. Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about, for those who don't know, the Benjamin E. Mays Historic Site?
So our site opened in 2011 to honor the life and the legacy of Dr. Benjamin E. Mays. Dr. Mays was a man who was born here in Greenwood County to two parents that were ex-slaves, and his parents were almost entirely illiterate. His father could read a little bit but could not write. His mother was completely illiterate. And Mays rises out of those conditions to go on to be to get a bachelor's degree from Bates College in Lewiston, Maine, to get a master's and PhD from the University of Chicago, and he is considered the principal founder of the civil rights movement. That most of what we know that becomes the civil rights movement come from the mind and the pen of Ben Mays. But before he gets there, he had to overcome a lot of obstacles to get to the path that his life took him to.
Sounds like a very self-determined individual. And he had a relationship with Dr. King as well.
He was the mentor to Dr. King. King sort of comes into Mays' orbit at 15 when he comes to Morehouse. He was a member of Dr. Mays' first early admissions program that brought high school students out of high school 2 years early. So King left high school after his sophomore year and comes to Morehouse. And Mays really influenced King in every way. Everything that we know that King became, he became because he was trying to emulate Dr. Mays. And so there's very little about King that does not have a Mays influence in some way.
Beautiful.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm
boy,
learning.
History lesson. I'm telling you, baby. Hey.
It's funny, everyone knows Dr. King. A lot of people know Benjamin Mays as well, but, Dr. Martin Luther King is definitely a huge figure, not just in our country, but in the world. And then you have this, individual in Dr. Benjamin Mays who was a mentor to him. Mm-hmm. So even some of the concepts and philosophies that Dr. King, that he had, some of those very well could have been cultivated by Dr. Mays, and, many may not know him. So I think it's... I think it just says a lot about him. It says a lot about his, I'll say self-determination, because that's in the title today, about his self-determination from those humble beginnings and getting to where he did and having such an influence that he did. And his influence, I'm sure, is still being felt today when we just think about some of the things, the impact that Dr. Martin Luther King made. So I appreciate you for being here.
Yes.
I appreciate you all for having me.
Mr. Thomas, is it Reverend Thomas? Is that okay?
It is Reverend Thomas.
Okay. Because I was calling you Mister. I heard you. I was calling you Mister, but I want to make sure we get
Some
that
respect
right.
on his name.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll start with, since I already mentioned self-determination, we'll at least acknowledge our topic today, but then we want to move into what you want to know as the people. So our topic today is self-determination and how it empowers your mental health. We're still in season 10, episode 91, y'all. Once again, I mentioned, man, we're getting close to that 100th episode, and we have something really special for you all when that comes up. But Mr. Terance Dawkins, you want to give us that? You want to let us know what the people want to know?
Yes. I'm gonna tone it down a little bit.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead, Barry White.
As my
Get to him.
co-host Josh Williams normally do. The people want to know, what should I be willing to sacrifice to reach my goal?
Oh my God.
Okay.
What should I be willing to sacrifice to reach my goal? You want to go ahead?
Is that-
Oh yeah.
We like to give our guests the
Sure.
the courtesy.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Our distinguished
Yeah,
guests.
and speaking to the mic.
All right. I think sacrifice anything that doesn't cost you your dignity.
Yeah.
That
That
as
part.
long as it's something that isn't willing to take too much of your humanity and dignity away, that we should all sacrifice greatly to achieve the things that we want to achieve. I think oftentimes people don't achieve because they're not willing to make the sacrifices. They have these goals and ideas, and they think that they should come easily. But
Right.
most things in life require a sacrifice, and so I think anything that doesn't cost you your dignity should be something you should be willing to sacrifice.
And I wanted to expand on that a little bit. Initially, when you asked the question, I thought about our character and our morals and how people. You hear the phrase like a lot of people that got to the top, they don't have good character, or they did not maintain their integrity during that growth process. But I like to encourage people that as you're reaching your goals and achieving those successes in life, to maintain not only your dignity, but also your good character and your integrity. I feel like all of those words go hand in hand, but it can easily, just off of one decision, good character can be impacted, or just off of one decision, your dignity can be jeopardized. So I like to think that it's very important to maintain that sense of, or that concept and that value of good character, or being a good person.
I like the way you put values. When people start out with achieving certain goals, or they pretty much identify a goal, is based off of dignity, is based off character, is based off what they value. And sometimes I think people will sacrifice things that's outside of their value system just to get to that goal, but that goal originated from the value,
Oh,
right?
let's go. I like
So
that.
why would you sacrifice what you value or your character for something that it originally started from? So that's what I think.
And I want to encourage people too. A lot of times we see a goal, we see a path to getting there, and we come up against a decision on our path whereby it feels like we may have to sacrifice something, sacrifice values, sacrifice beliefs, sacrifice things that are ultimately important to us and important to who we are. And if you're not careful, you'll find yourself doing it in little ways. So please be careful. But I want to encourage you that a lot of times those opportunities come back around, right? A lot of times they come back around when they're really meant for you. And we can a lot of times think, oh man, I got to make this decision right now. I got to go with it right now. Whatever, I may have to sacrifice whatever over here, but I'm going to do it because I don't know when this opportunity is going to come back around. Trust that when you are staying true to your values, that the opportunities that are for you will come around when they are supposed to. And if you don't wait, if you don't practice that patience and wait on your time, then you can end up in a situation, right, where sacrificing has caused you to sometimes lose yourself in different ways. And so just be careful about that. I want to ask, based on that question, what are some people uncomfortable sacrificing that y'all have seen?
I can speak to myself. I know something that I was not comfortable sacrificing was sleep.
Okay.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I wanted to, and I say this because something I used to do during my childhood was read every single night before I went to bed.
Good habit, yeah.
And it was a good habit, very great habit. And throughout some years of my life, I compromised that for sleep. And in exchange for that compromise, I saw that I wasn't growing internally. I might have been growing academically, and I might have been growing, towards my degree, but internally I was not growing because an important part of me was missing. And it's because I wanted to sleep. I wanted those extra 30 minutes of sleep, or even in the morning when I knew I should be working out. Well, I wanted that extra 30 minutes and an hour of rest, and my body reflected those decisions. So something that's been hard for me, or I should say challenging, and the determining factor in reaching my goals or not is sleep. I'm a sleepy girl, y'all.
No, that's fine.
but I had to learn how to bring some discipline into that area of my life and cut out some things that did not relate to those core values, or cut out some things that did not align with my goals in life, so that I could not only get proper rest, but I could also make those sacrifices to reach my goals. So that's a funny example, but it's so true. It's so true. Anybody that knows me knows that I like to get my rest. I like to get my beauty rest, y'all. But at what cost? At what cost am I going to allow resting and sleeping to interfere with my ultimate goals that are more important?
And I do like me a good nap. I ain't even gonna lie.
Who does it?
I'm gonna sleep on them now.
Yeah. But I think for me, it's something that, especially within the last couple of years, there's been certain goals that and benchmarks that I've been wanting to hit, and I've learned that in the process of trying to hit those benchmarks, I sacrificed my self-care, which could lead to like burnout and feeling overwhelmed and feeling stressed, and which has its own consequences within that. So something that I've had to back up and look at is not sacrificing that self-care, to be like, I'm going to take this nap today, even though I got XYZ to do, because I know I need it, or taking a step back from, I know, this is probably going to get me closer to my goal, but like Josh said, this opportunity, or I can do this later type thing. So being able to prioritize things so where I can still fit into self-care. So,
Okay.
Yep.
You got anything, Reverend Thomas?
Yeah, I think for me, it was, friendship, relationship. When, particularly for you all, when you're young, you assume that all the friendships you have, you're going to take into your 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. But, sometimes when you're trying to go certain places in life, you realize everybody that's with you now isn't going to be with you when you get there. And sometimes it's stressful. You have friends you grew up with, and, at some point you get to a stage and you're just going different directions in life. And sometimes some of those friendships you have to sacrifice. Everybody can't go with you where you're going. And I think a lot of people hinder their path and hinder their growth because they're holding on to people or allowing people to hold on to them beyond their time and phase in your life. And sometimes you have to evaluate, friendship, relationship, and ask yourself, is it hindering you from getting where you're going?
You better do that
You
evaluation.
better preach.
You better do that.
You better preach.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. One thing for me is time. Sacrificing time is. Well, I say. So it kind of depends with me. I recognize how sacrificing time, say with family, how that can affect them, and so keep in mind of the things that you are sacrificing, how it can affect the ones that you care about, your loved ones as well. Sometimes it's it's tough for me to. I'm a worker, right, and so sometimes it's tough for me to sacrifice my time. I have to be intentional about it. I'll say that to put down, whatever work that I have going on. Sometimes I'll be working at night, and I get a look from my wife, and okay, let me put that down. But that's one for me.
Okay.
I think time well spent on the question that the people out there want to know. So thank you all, as always, for your questions and your feedback.
Can I interject something?
Yes.
So I'm married almost 32 years, raised 5 children,
Yes, sir.
and never have I sacrificed my family. And I don't encourage anyone to sacrifice your family, the time with your children, the time with your spouse.
Yeah.
Those are the things that should be cherished and maintained, and you should not sacrifice your family for success.
Definitely. And sometimes, you all be careful too, because I know, you can get on jobs and in careers where, it's almost like you feel pressure to sacrifice that. So that's when you want to bring yourself back to your values, and just remembering the ones that you love. And I think one thing I think about is, we have these values. We want to make sure that our values are in alignment with the right things too, though. Because I've had values in the past, but those values wouldn't necessarily lead me to the in the right direction, right? So sometimes we have goals that are aligned with values. They're aligned with our values, but if our values aren't right in the first place, if our values aren't like honesty and gratitude and things like that, then if we have ugly values, guess what we're gonna end up? We're gonna end up with some ugly goals, and we're gonna end up in some ugly places. So just remembering to bring our importance back in. Remember the importance of bringing our values in alignment with righteous thinking. I say
Okay.
righteous thinking. Our cutie of the hour.
Yeah.
I appreciate y'all input on that too. Our cutie of the hour.
Yep. So our QD of the hour, it relates to our title of self-determination. Self-determination empowers your mental health. So that today's QD of the hour says, according to the World Health Organization, WHO, self-determination is crucial for personal growth, resilience, and overall life satisfaction. And relating to this QD of the hour, I definitely agree. I feel like those three factors, personal growth, resilience, and overall life satisfaction, it directly correlates with how determined you are within yourself.
And can we tackle self-determination? What is that exactly to you all? Whoever wants to take it. But what is self-determination to you all?
I think that's using the tools that you have to yourself personally, to use them to push you beyond the barriers and restrictions in your life that are keeping you to get to the things in life that you aspire to do and to be. Sometimes we think that it's external factors that contribute to our success, and oftentimes it's not. And Mays had a great quote. He said, "It's not in your environment; it's you. The quality of your mind, the integrity of your soul, and the determination of your will that will decide your future and shape your life." And Dr. Mays didn't believe that your environment was the greatest determinant of your outcomes in life, and he pushed this idea that it's internal things that ultimately will lead to your success and your outcomes in life, and I think that's what self-determination is.
Beautiful. It's your internal environment.
I'm not gonna follow that up. I'm just saying that was said perfectly.
Right. That I appreciate you sharing that.
I don't have nothing after that one.
And I also want to highlight that I know personally I can get in this mentality where I can allow external factors to impact my self-determination. And that shouldn't be. Similar to what you said, Reverend, is that those self-determining factors, they start within ourselves. It starts internally. And I feel like it's up to us to create that separation between allowing external factors such as finances or the environment you came from or your family history to impact you internally, and more importantly to impact your future goals and successes.
So, question: how do we bring ourselves back then to that internal point that we're talking about, and not allowing those external factors to really dictate our self-determination? How do we bring ourselves back where we need to be?
I think it kind of starts with like awareness, maybe. I think just being aware of maybe if I'm aware that maybe I'm losing motivation or determination to do things, taking that step back and like we said on the previous episode, being curious about why is this, what's going on in my environment, what's going on internally, what's going on with my thoughts, that's really impacting my motivation or to move forward towards these goals. Again, it's not the external factors, but like you said, if I'm not aware of the external factors or these other circumstances that's impacting me internally, then I can't really make a change. So I think awareness is a very big part of it to start with.
Yeah. And almost for me, it's like, and somebody I'm sure already said it, but just looking inside, there's a lot of self-concepts out there. You got self-determination, right? Self-awareness, self-confidence, self-realization. And they all talk about getting away from the external and looking inside. So I think with self-determination, I think to your point, it starts with that self-awareness. And I think, and with that is being aware of the things that are going on inside of you, right? As we've been saying. Then there's a self-realization thing, right? Realizing how are these things, I'm aware now of what's going on inside of me. How are these things affecting me? And then somewhere along the way, if you can build that self-confidence to me is so important in relation to self-determination. A lot of times I think about myself in the past when I didn't feel as confident, I didn't feel as empowered to make those to make those decisions and those choices, to be self-determined, I would say.
Okay.
To kind of help to dictate, and I say help to dictate because I don't believe my actions will always take me exactly where I want, but help to dictate where I'm going. I feel like self-confidence is really big when we're thinking about self-determination.
Yeah.
I think that people also have to realize that in our lives, there are a lot of exterior barriers that are placed upon you, even when you're a child, before you even realize that these barriers are there. The things that your family says to you, your teachers say to you. So you have to address all of the things that people said to you that you can't do, you can't be, you can't become, whether they directly said it to you or you just looked at your environment and you said, I can't go to college because nobody in my family went to college. I can't do this because no one in my environment has done this. And so I think people have to address the restrictions that are placed upon them and how these restrictions address, their own minds. And I'll give you another, May's example, if you don't mind. But, he was born into a world where there were very little expectations educationally on black people. And he was very bothered by the notion of black inferiority. And so instead of him just succumbing to it when he was a child, he basically went to his mother and said, Mama, if God had made me inferior, I never would pray to a God like that. And his mom was bothered by this. She was a very religious lady. But later on, he said, Mom, I wasn't disbelieving in God. I just simply had rejected the social idea that blacks were inferior to whites. I didn't believe God would do that to me or to any person or to any people. And so he sets off on this course in his life that he wanted to go somewhere, to leave the South, because he wanted to go somewhere where he could sit side by side in a classroom with white students and to prove that his mind was as sharp and as capable as anybody's mind. He was directly addressing the issue of his inferiority to others, and he set off on a path and a goal to prove to himself and to others that his mind was as sharp as anyone else. So he was directly addressing the issue that society said to him one thing that he didn't accept, and he was going to prove them wrong. And I think for all of us, we have to address the barriers in our lives, whatever they are. They're different for everybody, but you have to directly address them and attack them.
I appreciate that you mentioned that, Reverend Thomas, because to answer Josh's question, I thought about earlier how we were talking about external factors and separating them, that sometimes you have to consider, or like you said, address those barriers or even those external situations or factors outside of yourself in order to see areas that you need to improve on. And I say that because sometimes I feel like without addressing those barriers, we can become complacent. We can become complacent in how things have always been. We can become very complacent in how we have always performed or done certain things. And more importantly, we can become complacent within ourselves when it comes to self-growth. So going back to our topic of self-determination, we have to address those barriers that exist not only inside of us, but also externally in order to tap into that self-determination of how can I grow? How can I step outside of my comfort zone? How can I activate that self-determination in me to reach my goals?
And so what I'm hearing, y'all, is these external factors do exist, but they can be a challenge to us growing internally as well. And we're discovering ourselves, becoming more aware of ourselves internally, as well as growing. Y'all help me out with it, maybe. Yeah. But as well as growing, right? And I think an important thing we talked about in the prior episode is kind of defining our situations, defining our circumstances. The way that he defined the situation of that inferiority, the way that he defined it, he defined it differently than his mother, right? And that kind of led to him being on this journey in a way, kind of led him to being on this journey of that took him all these great places. So I just think that's a concept that we want to continue to bring attention to. Those not ignoring those external factors, but using them as a challenge for our own personal growth.
Yeah.
I agree.
And I said earlier, I raised 4 sons and a daughter, and I've always taught my kids to don't accept the barriers that are placed on you, because kids go to school, and literally by a first grade teacher, she can tell a child whether she thinks he's academically exceptional or academically weak, or and so very early on, kids develop these ideas of what they think they can accomplish based upon what an adult told them. The adult could be completely wrong, but somehow if you are in an educational environment, for instance, where the adults in your world tell you that you're not academically or intellectually strong, you'll accept that. And you have kids walking around that have brilliant minds that sit there and think, I can't do this, or I can't do that, or I can't accomplish this, because they've accepted the barriers that people have placed on them. And somehow, we all do have natural barriers. All of us, like, I'd like to run a sub 10 100, but I can't, and I never will. But that doesn't mean that I couldn't improve upon what abilities I did have. So I could have been running a 12-second 100, and I could get to 11. So I think we have to really take an inventory of what kind of barriers have your environment placed upon you, and have you actually accepted those barriers and internalized them, because they become as real as a wall if you have actually accepted them, internalized them.
Yeah,
accepted them.
So I appreciate that you acknowledge that, and it made me think about a question. I just want to switch gears a little bit, but how does self-determination impact or empower your mental health? Or can it, how does having self-determination on the inside, how does that empower our mental health?
I'll start off with that one. So I work at a college counseling center. And a lot of what I'm hearing from students is, I just don't have the motivation to go to class, or I don't have the motivation to do my work, don't have the motivation to be social. So I feel like that whole piece of, they don't have that self-determination because of, like you said, barriers either placed on them by society, or barriers placed on them, for themselves, or they'll say, I can't do this because of X, Y, Z. I don't have enough time. So they put all these different stipulations around why they can't do things, which then can impact their determination to do things, which then can lead to, now I'm depressed and I don't want to leave my room, or now I'm very anxious, so I avoid certain situations. So I feel like that whole self-determination of looking forward to something, or looking forward to doing something, can have a cascade effect on other areas, whether that's school, whether that's work, whether that's relationships, whether that's intimate or personal. So I think that's how it can be impacting your mental health.
So it's almost like they're looking at what they can't do, or
some of what I'm seeing, yes.
Yeah.
In that particular setting, yes.
Gosh, no, I get it. It's funny because I've seen people do it, and I'm sure I've even done it. I challenge myself not to do it though. I feel like when I do it, I feel like I'm doing myself a disservice. Yeah, man, I appreciate that. For me, it's we were talking about self-determination and the bearing that it has on your mental health. I think so. For me, it's vision, right? If I'm not able to be self-determined, as in, if I'm not able to say, this is where I want to go, and I feel empowered to get there, then I have no vision, and without vision, I have no guide. And without a guide, then my mental health could definitely suffer. I could become, I would say, less confident in where I'm. In myself, right, and in where my life is going, because I have no guide. But where I'm able to set goals, I'll say goal setting is really big. That's what vision for me comes in. It's like having a vision. This is where I want to be. Then I can set goals. That's really important to me, but because without those goals, and without me knowing where I want to go, then it's like I'm just out here, and I expose myself then to just all kinds of things. I just leave myself kind of out there, kind of open for whatever. So I think that having a vision and having goals kind of governs me and governs my actions. Then I'm less likely to take risks that don't align with where I'm determined to go, because I know where I'm trying to get, and I don't want to risk that. So when we don't have a vision, or we don't have goals of getting somewhere, we leave ourselves open to to sacrificing, like we said earlier, to sacrificing. To sacrifice. Yeah, I'm gonna end right there. 'Cause I can just keep on going.
So what I'm hearing is that self-determination leads you to goal setting and creating a vision, and by accomplishing those goals and that vision, that impacts your mental health positively.
Thank you. I feel heard. and seen.
Well, I appreciate that. That's what we
good.
want here on Speaking of Gravity.
That
We
was
want
good.
you all to
Yes.
feel heard.
To feel heard.
Yes.
And you all, please remember
Call
to
Hannah.
please remember to add your chats, add your opinions to interact with us. As on this platform that you're watching, comment, please share. And Terance, I wanted to go back to a point that you made in the college setting. How do students get over that funk?
Yeah. So what I kind of tell them, it kind of goes. See, this is what I like about this podcast.
What's
a lot of the different topics we have intersect with each other, right? So I think we had an episode about perception,
Yes.
right? So I think what I try to help them realize is they're focused on, I need you to increase my motivation. I can't give you motivation. Like, if I could, then great, here you go. But I think it's about what you ultimately believe about maybe yourself or about your abilities, like they said. So that it's more of like, what is it that you value? So I'll go through a whole exercise where I try to understand what are the different beliefs they have. So, for example, if I have a difficult class, and I'm not doing well in that class, then I would probably, I call it a spiral. I could spiral very quickly to where it's like, I'm not doing good in this class. That means I'm going to fail. That means I'm not going to get my college degree. That means I'm not going to be able to take care of my family. So now we got somewhere.
Man,
So we got to, we're going from you valuing taking care of your family, but the event is not doing well in the class, and they're not really, I guess, aware of the value that's being challenged. They're just more focused on the class, which then ultimately shows it lowers their determination or motivation. So when I show them what they're necessarily afraid of, that fear, then we can start working on the underlying issue, not necessarily the motivation. So it's about what do you perceive the issue to be, and what do we tackling to work on. So that's what exercise I do with them to try to help get them. And we'll, like I said, once we challenge that a little bit, we can start seeing their motivation pick up, because now they know where this lack of motivation is coming from.
So what I'm hearing from you is that how our level of self-determination directly impacts or is impacted by our core values.
I feel seen and heard. Thank you.
Well, I'm just asking for clarification.
Yes, sir.
Are you a married woman or a single woman?
Formerly single, but on the way.
I'm married. I'm not asking for that.
No.
Her answer about to tell you why we said,
Formerly single, but recently engaged.
Said formerly
So-
single.
That's why.
I will be a married woman very soon.
Yes.
When you get married, don't repeat back everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
that can cause some trouble.
Is what I hear you saying is, really?
He ain't gonna go for that. Yeah.
Probably go for husbands too, though, don't it?
Well, it wouldn't work when you're husband either.
Yeah.
It's worse when you're husband. Yeah.
That's not what I said.
That's not what I said. Oh, here we go downhill.
But what about when
trouble.
you are trying to clarify things, though? You got me thinking now, like just trying to make sure that I'm understanding you in the right way. Could it be helpful in some? Well, I guess how you do it.
Yeah, how you do it.
Okay.
And how often you do it.
Yeah,
So don't do it every time
Yeah.
he or she says something. Yeah.
I agree.
And I was being facetious when I was
understand.
teasing her.
I like that though. That's good. That's good advice, because
No,
you are absolutely right, because nobody want to hear that every time.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, it makes sense. So I like that.
So what's your take on it, Reverend? Does having that concept of self-determination empower our mental health? And if you could correlate it to some of your experience, in your field.
Yeah, I think that being stuck in life is one of the worst places to be. Where you have this desire to do and to be, and you just feel like you can't get there, or you can't, and I think one of the things that I think people need to do is learn to take the next first step, whatever, because sometimes people say, well, I'm frustrated with step 29 I have to take, and I'm like, wait a minute, you haven't even taken step 3 yet. So I think people have to get in their lives to a point where they're doing what's necessary now to achieve what's you're looking at in the future. But I think all of us have goals, all of us have ideas about who we are and what we can and should become, but sometimes we just get stuck, and sometimes we're stuck in our mind. I always say that fear of success and fear of failure are the same place. They're different fears, but they're the same place. You're not moving, you're not taking steps to move forward because you're afraid of failing, and you're not moving, you're not taking steps forward because you're afraid of succeeding. And so I think for all of us, self-determination has to be the person that can look at themselves and look at their situation and take the necessary steps to get from where you are to where you're trying to go, because sometimes, again, people just sit for, I'm a little older than you guys, but I know people that have sat for years, that friends of mine that, should have gone to college in the 80s, and now they're like 60 talking about going back and getting a college degree, when, you had 40 years to do that, but there were real obstacles in their lives that kept them from thinking, believing that they could. And so I think people's self-determination, a lot of that is just getting your own self together to say, let me take that next significant step to get to where I'm going.
Okay.
That word stuck out to me. People do get stuck, right? And like you said, their minds and what they believe about the situation or the obstacles or barriers, and sometimes it's hard to overcome that at times. And I think that's probably why me as a therapist, my job is to try to help people get past that stuck point, but not give them the answers, but show them that again, it starts with them. They have to do some type of action. They have to have that self-motivation or self-determination to get past this point, so that we can then do some work to help improve the barriers or circumstances that they are having.
Yeah. My mother, I told Kirby, I wasn't sure if I was going to share this, but I grew up with a mother who had depression. Eventually, by the time I get to high school, she had a good job with the state. She just quit her job, and then just basically sat, not even in her room, but another room we had in the house, and just barely ate. By the time I was a senior, she was emaciated at probably 70-something pounds. And a lot of my mom's issue was that, where there were things in her own mind, she just couldn't get past disappointments, perceptions of things. And one of my mom's biggest obstacles was just her own mind. She could not get herself out of her own funk. And I get, schizophrenia is a mental illness. I'm not saying it's not, but a lot of it is just. And I remember one time I was sitting with my mom, and we had gone to the beach, and we were sitting on a sunny day, and all of a sudden these clouds rolled in. And my mother and I had this conversation before that. I was like, Mom, explain to me, what goes on in your mind. And she couldn't explain it. And then we're just sitting on the beach, and this cloud rolls in, and she grabs my arm, and she said, son, that's what it's like. Just this fog rolls, this funk rolls in, and she can't get it out. And a lot of us deal with that in various ways, various capacities. We just get to a place in our own mind and our own thought where we just can't get out of our own way. And I think people have to, clear out things. Like I've learned with my own mental health to do things like clear out my email inbox, to just keep things cleared out of my life. Because if I don't, things just get built up, and it just becomes, like a fog. And I think people to be self-determined really is maintaining those things in your life that can be, the totality of them can become overwhelming barriers to you moving forward. And people have to take that kind of inventory for themselves. Yeah.
I really appreciate and thank you for sharing that personal experience about your mother. And I just from hearing you talk, I see how it shaped you as an individual, and probably how empathetic you are towards other people simply because of that experience. And I'm glad that you said that, because it made me think about the original question was, does having self-determination, how does it empower your mental health? But right now I'm understanding that having a mental health condition can also impact that factor of self-determination and how high or low it is. sometimes mental health can impact our brain so much, and the chemistry of our brain, or even not just the actual mental health condition, but even the side effects of medicine that you're taking for the mental health condition can impact motivation, can impact your self-confidence, can impact those internal factors that, other people have, you may not have. So I think that's why it's so important to look at things from a larger scope and not just look at one piece of the puzzle, because once we view things from a larger scope, we're able to see where are the missing pieces and how we can fill those voids in life. And I say that because what your mom needed at that time was community. What she needed from you while y'all were sitting on the beach was just for you to look.
Sure.
She didn't need medication at that time.
No.
She needed that sense of community. That was the missing piece that she needed to feel heard, to feel seen. I know we were laughing about that, but that's so important. Sure. And I'm sure, just using that example, that could have added to whatever she was going, that could have positively impacted whatever challenge she was going through that day. So I'm glad that you shared that personal experience with us.
That's awesome, man. I was just thinking, what have y'all found to help when when you're in those type of funks? Not saying that everyone's is the same. We mentioned things like schizophrenia. Some folks actually have disorders, but when you're in those funks, how to get out so that you can be in a place where you're empowered to determine, your destiny. Not saying you have full control, but to determine where you want to be and where you want to go in life. What have y'all found to help? And one thing that I heard was kind of taking things out. I heard from you, Reverend Thomas, because feeling overwhelmed, when you was talking about emails, man, that resonated with me.
Or text messages.
Stop playing, man. What is it? I got a new phone, so ha. I got it. I'm going to tell you how many unread.
That was something personal, I guess.
That's an ongoing joke.
I had 2 unread messages.
Woo, that's growth, baby. See? Speaking with gravity helped change Josh's life.
Well, no, that's on one phone. I still got my old phone, too. I got 2 phones. But another thing I thought about was kind of was something we talked about on another episode. Was like reframing and kind of renewing your mind, and kind of related to what you were saying, Dr. Thomas, taking things out. You also have to put some things in. Sure. I think as you're taking things out, so continue to put good things in. And I think when we think about good things, thinking about beliefs, affirmations, right, about yourself and about your faith, or affirmations that align with your faith or that reconfirm your faith, I think is very important. And you think about how do you even get there to the point where you can accept those good things. And there has to be like a level of humility in the sense of understanding that you don't know it all, right? That you don't know everything. You've been defining things in a certain way, and that's partly what's been keeping you in that funk. But if you can understand that, hey, if you be humble enough to understand, hey, I'm not always right, even about how I think I feel right now. There are other ways to look at this. If you can be in that place, then you can kind of reposition the way that you're thinking about some of these things. So that's my take on that. Reverend Thomas, we want to make sure we're getting close to end time here. We want to make sure that we give you some time here at the end to just any thoughts that you may have to get those out. Any thoughts you may have for our viewers based on the episode today about self-determination.
What we were just talking about a second ago, I think it's also important to take inventory of the people that are around you.
Yes.
Because oftentimes if you are in a funk and everybody around you supports your funk, then you're really in a bad situation. You have to get to where you allow people in your life that will challenge you, because everybody, I have a son and I think he calls me only for that reason, because he kind of tends to be a woe is me, everybody, and I'm a son, stop that, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, get yourself together, you're responsible for yourself. That's me. And there was a time in his life where he shied away from me because he didn't want Dad's impact, because he knew it was going to be different than his own. But I think that all of us, have to have a circle of people that challenge our beliefs, that challenge our doubts, that challenge our lack, and always keep pointing us to a place where we can do more, be more. And I think, just to sort of end, I guess, with Dr. Mays, that was his effectiveness, that he was a man that had really believed that young people should aspire to great heights, should seek to great things. He had these sayings like the tragedy in life is not failure, but it's low aim. He was a person that was always challenging young people and to shoot for the stars. Yes. He told the Morehouse men, when you leave here, I want you to leave here believing whatever is possible under the sun, that a Morehouse man can do it. And so that was one of his great things. He was always challenging young men, particularly African American young men, to reach for higher possibilities, and a lot of these young men said it was tough initially because they didn't come from environments where someone was telling them that you can be whatever you aspire to be. And then he said, that and if you shoot for something and you don't make it, that's not the tragedy. The tragedy is not winning all the time. The tragedy is not trying, not having a competition to enter into. And so I think that people need to be challenged in life. As parents, we should challenge our children. Don't ever let your kids abide by the expectations that their environment has placed upon them.
Yes, sir.
Challenge them to go beyond what they believe they can do. Challenge them to go beyond what the teachers said they could do. Because for my children, if I would have let Greenwood District 50 determine for my kids their outcome, I wouldn't. I'm soon to have 4 college graduate black males, and certainly that motivation didn't come from the teachers and folks that were around them. So I think that we all need to challenge ourselves and to create a community or an environment, people that challenge us as well.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. And I'm not sure if you referenced this quote earlier by Dr. Mays, but it says, and if so, then I just want to repeat it because it just stood out to me. But the tragedy of life is often not in our failure, but rather in our complacency. Not in our doing too much, but rather in our doing too little. Not in our living above our ability, but rather in living below our capacities.
Awesome.
So it sounds like goal setting is one of the ways or one of the interventions where we can empower ourselves, where we can build that self-determination to improve our mental health, but ultimately just to improve our quality of life as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dr. Mays. And thank you, Reverend Thomas.
Yes.
And I want to say thank you to Dr. Mays just for influencing this episode as much as he has, and all the people that he has. Yeah, we'll give him a round of applause.
Thank you.
And then we'll thank Reverend Thomas, our guest, for being here with us. We'll give him a round of applause as well.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yes, sir. We appreciate all your wisdom and definitely welcome you back. So thank you all. Thank you all. Clap for yourselves out there. Thank you all for joining us on this journey to unlock self-determination. We hope that today's discussion inspires you to take charge of your life and your mental health. Please don't forget to subscribe, to like, to comment. Let us know. Give us your feedback. Let us know how you feel about today's episode. Any questions you may have as well, please connect with us on social media for updates and for resources. Remember, your path to empowerment begins with the choices you make today. Until then, this is Speaking with Gravity.
Y'all take care.
Peace.